Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 17 of the Survival Project. My guest today is Owen Lancelot, and his story is not just about ulcerative colitis and ostomy surgery. It's about what happens to your mind when your body starts to train you as a teenager. The anger, the removal of fear in the actions that you take. Because what does it matter if your body's killing you anyway? And a lot of what Owen said, I felt he was actually holding a mirror up. And I'm sure there are many men out there who felt the same. And then we get into the shift. How he rebuilt himself, how endurance sport became a way to regain control, and why community matters so much for men living with chronic illness. If you're a guy dealing with IBD, a stoma, chronic pain, or just feeling isolated and stuck in your own head, this conversation is for you. Thank you so much to Souls Healthcare for making conversations like this possible and for creating apps like Oste Connect. Chronic illness no longer has to mean isolation. I'll tell you all about it later in the episode. So let's get into it.
So thank you so much for joining me, man. Essentially, would you just tell everybody your story?
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Like I was just saying, I love what you're doing. I think this is exactly what people like us need. And, there's so much to take away from our stories. Like, people who don't necessarily have the same conditions as us or maybe completely able, they still are able to draw from stories like ours and just be like, look introspectively and be like, shit, here's something I can do, I can really get at it. So yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited. Yeah, I mean, I don't know where to start. There's a long story to it, but pretty much I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis when I was 16. At that point in time, I was living in Sydney, Australia. I was born and raised in France, actually, and I moved to Australia with my family when I was 7. Normal childhood, I always loved to play soccer. And my mum was a runner, so I used to kind of run with her here and there, but she, like now, when we talk about it, she wishes I ran this much back in the day. That's all she wanted me to do. But I kind of use running with her as training for soccer. I never really saw running as anything in its own. And yeah, kind of just followed soccer till about that 16-year mark. And man, I got destroyed by ulcerative colitis. To put it simply, like I was in one of the highest severity cases that they've ever seen in Australia. And from the get-go, I was initially misdiagnosed. I had a lot of symptoms. I had blood coming out with a bowel motion and everything like that, and a lot of pain. So I went to the GP. He diagnosed it as internal hemorrhoids. I disagree, but okay. And they kind of just sent me out on my way. And now talking to a lot of people that deal with IBD, it's such a common thing to be misdiagnosed initially. And so for 6 months, I was sent back out in school, and, I was just gradually getting so much worse, losing all my weight, losing all my color. I couldn't keep up with my daily routine as a 16-year-old, barely anything but going to school and going to sport, but that was just too much for me. And yeah, that just got worse and worse. 6 months later, ended up in hospital, had all the colonoscopies and everything, and my UC actually had impacted my entire colon straight away. So it just was relentless. I was in hospital for 3 weeks on intravenous steroids. So that in itself is just so damaging to your body. And coming out, then you get put back into school. Like, how do you even explain what you just went through to 16-year-old kids?
Back in like nothing happened. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, and you kind of look the same at this point. You've kind of come back, you've got a bit more color, and people are just like, oh, where were you? Just on holiday, don't mind me. So yeah, it was hard. It was hard for those years, and it was just, it impacted me in so many different ways, like it was so tough mentally, way more difficult than I ever imagined it to be. It's not like a gradual thing that you kind of pick up on where you're like, oh, I can tell that I'm a bit more sad more often. It's like you plummet into this hole, and it shows itself in so many different ways. And for me, during that time, it actually came out and showed itself in really bad habits, just getting into a lot of trouble, getting into a lot of bad habits, just doing everything that was actually the opposite of what my body needed at that time. But because my mind was so corrupted by how sick I was and how much I was missing out on at every opportunity that I could grasp to be a part of something or to just, feel a bit of something, I would just go 110%. And so not only does that becomes super detrimental to your health, but it becomes detrimental to your relationships, to the people around you. And you just become like lost in this smoke because of something that's invisible, but it's hurting you so much. And you don't know how to really translate that pain into solutions because all your doctors, like, don't have answers for you. All you do, and this is how it went for 4 years from 16 to 20, was going in and out of hospital because they would try a new medication. But in the meantime, they'd stabilize me on steroids. I'd start weaning off the steroids, hoping that the medication that they'd put me on had picked up, and then it would gradually collapse and fall apart. And the only time that you get accepted back into hospital realistically is when your health is so bad that you have to go through the ER. So it was just, depending on the medication or the dosage, a month, 2 months, 3 months sometimes, where I was able to get back to my normal life. And at times, I would actually prefer the 1 month because I didn't get time to feel normal. I was already in that mindset that I'm sick, and I didn't get back to my sport. I didn't get back to anything. In 3 months, after 1 month, I'm like, all right, I want to go back to the gym. Maybe I'm going to start meal prepping again, whatever I was doing. And it gives you this false sense of hope and security of who you are. And you've refound who you've really become as a person and whatever. And it just comes falling apart again. One of the most detrimental mindsets that I picked up was, well, my own body's killing me. So why would I be scared of anything or anyone? And, exactly, it's, if you haven't felt that pain that destabilizes your entire world and everything, you don't understand the dark side that creates inside of you. And you don't understand the anger that can come out of that. And again, that translates so differently depending on your personality, depending on your environment, depending on everything. And for me, it was just being absolutely wild at any occasion that I had. And that put everything else aside for so long. And that also built a persona of who I was in other people's eyes for a long time. I would say one of the silver linings of actually having my surgery in the end was to be able to flip that page and be so certain in who I am now and who I've become because of what I've done since then, that it's really been able to create a foundation that feels strong enough to support me for the rest of my life. And I've seen your content. I know how you've spoken about these things. When I was 16, I never expected to be this old and be alive. Whether it was my disease or myself some way, or, I wouldn't say I was suicidal, but I was definitely picking up such bad tendencies that my life was always at risk. And so the fear of dying kind of disappeared. And so for so long, I never even thought about being this old. I never even thought about getting this far. And so to be here and to have been given a fresh slate to really build a new life on, I take everything for what it's worth and more now. And that's the most beautiful thing, and I'm grateful for it. And I get to really experience life now. And that's, again, something I never thought I could experience. Never. So, I guess tracking back that whole time from 16 to 18, I was in school. So that was really difficult. And I had a lot of side effects from steroids. So bad acne, a lot of weight gain. I had a time where I came out of hospital. I'm 6'1". I came out of hospital at 57 kilos. And in the 2.5 weeks that I came out, I got up to 75. But because
What a
of the
bulk,
steroids,
yeah.
it was, and my face was so round. I had lumps of fat in my back that were pinching nerves. So I had problems like in positions trying to sleep and obviously like moving my arms. And then I was living with my mum for part of this time, and it was just her and I, and the medication I was on made me have so much insomnia that I was going days without sleeping, and then having like manic episodes where I'd wake my mum up in the middle of the night because there's some sort of sound that's bothering me and there's nothing. It's just me thinking that there's something going on, or thinking that there's someone outside walking up and down the driveway. Just like scary things like that, which, me in the moment, I'm not scared because I'm losing my mind. in hindsight, I'm so freaked out. I was on cruise control. I could have done anything. I wouldn't even known. And you can only imagine my mum, who is only there to take care of me, to really, like, she's the best person. She's such an empath, most loving person. And she doesn't have the answers for what's going on. Your kid's just coming out of nowhere, waking you up, hearing sounds that aren't there. How do you react? And so imagine the toll that takes for 4 years of that. That's how it was during school time. So I finished school, went on to biological drugs, had infusions, um, which I actually started when I was still in school, but luckily there was COVID, so I wasn't really at school. So I had the time to get to hospital. It was easier, let's put it like that. um, with biological drugs, even if you have one dose and it works the first time, the second time or the third time or the fourth time, your body can reject it. And so that was essentially what would happen to me. Eventually, I would start rejecting it. Whether it was in a month or 4 months, I would start rejecting it. And that feeling was one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my life. The feeling of having something inside of you that's like poisoning you, you're on fire, and all they can do is just put an IV in and try to flush you out, but you're going to have to deal with this. So doing 2 years or so, pretty much a year and a half of biological drugs. And then towards the end, I was put onto a new drug in the Australian market that was made by Pfizer called tofacitinib. And it was a pill which sort of worked. And then it probably after 6 months stopped working. After that point, the doctors were like, mate, this is it. Like, you cannot go on anymore. And I was in so much denial that I was like, that's it. I've had so much lack of control in my life so far. I'm doing what I want. And I went and faked scripts for the steroids because I knew the prednisolone worked. And I got as much prednisolone as I could, packed it all in a bag, and went to Europe with one of my best friends. And we were there for 3 months. And I was just like, I'm going to do whatever I want. If I don't come back, I don't care. Like, my life was, to me at that point, done. I was going to come back and have this surgery. My life was over. So may as well, go out in Europe, having fun, doing what I want to do. And we went and arguably had a great time. Could never do that again. But when I came back, I was in really bad shape, and drinking on that much dosage of steroids, like, it caused me to have tremors during the trip. I had insomnia pretty much the entire time. I also developed shingles at one point, like, and I was still just don't care, keep going. I'll put a bit of cream on it and yeah, just keep drinking. Doesn't matter. When I got back, I was in terrible shape. Crash landed into my mum's house going, like, my body's done. Organized for me to get this surgery done, a total colectomy, sorry. Yeah, pretty much came into hospital. They marked me. I'm in like so much pain, pretty much the usual UC pain of just having a flare up. So I didn't think anything of it. I was just sitting there in the waiting room. And after like 2 hours, I get processed into theater and they operated on me. Uh, uh, and the procedure ended up taking much longer than they expected. So my mum's waiting out there, my girlfriend's waiting out there, and she gets a call and she's like, hey, we're going to have to extend this surgery. We're not sure how long it's going to go for. But, Owen's appendix actually had already burst. So I had a burst appendix and I didn't even notice it because I just thought it was the pain in my UC. The surgery went for 9 hours. It was a robotic keyhole surgery. And they removed my appendix, removed my colon, but they couldn't do the J pouch because of how much pus had been spread through my stomach. So I had a drainage tube attached to me for the entire time I was in hospital. And when I came out of theater, I went into ICU, and I talk about this when I go and talk to the stoma nurses. The next 2 days in ICU was the most terrifying, and like, I don't know how to explain it. It was like a massive out of body experience for 2 days. And I was so drugged up when I came out that the whole time I'm just a pair of eyeballs because I couldn't move my body. I was still super drugged up, and they had me on a lot of painkillers because of the drainage tube was still pretty much completely an open wound with just a tube pumping out. Like there was a lot of stuff going on that I had to be on high amounts of painkillers. And so, but for those 2 days, I was conscious. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything but just look. And every so often I'd get bathed by a nurse with like a wet towel and, all these things that were just happening to me. And I just couldn't believe what was going on. And for the first day, I actually thought that I was blind because I was opening my eyes with my muscles, but I couldn't see anything. And on the second day, I could finally start moving my hands a little bit. And that's when I wiped my eyes and I still had the surgery gel on my eyes. And so that's why the whole time I was like, wow, like, I don't know am I dead? Have I lost my vision? Like, what's going on? And it was just the surgery gel on my eyes. Yeah, I came out of ICU actually in pretty good nick. I was like in good spirits, but I think that's because I was still on a lot of pain meds. And my body took a long time to actually start moving again. So the 3 days after ICU in the ward were the worst days of that stay because I had a lot of nausea to the point where I was spinning the entire time because they tried to move me onto a tablet form painkiller, which my body rejected. And so then I started getting like the most intense nausea I've ever had. And now, and definitely speak about it later with my running, one of the biggest problems that I have is when my nutrition goes wrong, I start to get nauseous and nausea doesn't just feel like nausea anymore. It brings up so much emotion in me that it's super overwhelming and
PTSD, like, yeah.
100%, and those 3 days with obviously a torn up abdomen after having the surgery, I was vomiting about half a liter at a time. And it's just like, you're tasting and you've got a nasal gastric tube. So it's like ripping everything in your throat, in your nose. And, yeah, it was horrible. I had, one of the nights, which this is something that, you know, I'm trying to work on fixing now that I'm working with a couple of hospitals with Coloplast talking to the nurses. But I had a night where my drainage tube, so like I said, was essentially a tube with like a a clear sort of round container at the end of it that would just catch a lot of drainage, whether it was blood, pus, whatever it was, through my abdomen loosely and sort of stitched up. But it wasn't, like airtight. So a lot of times it would leak all over me. And on the weekends, there would be the full-time nurses wouldn't be working at the hospital. So it was casual nurses, a lot less care was taken, a lot less people on the ward. So they have less time, to be fair to them. But one of the nights I woke up in the middle of the night, I can't move myself still. The drainage tube has come out about 10 centimeters and it's completely covered me in the bed with all this fluid. And so I'm calling the nurse. And in the meantime, I've called my girlfriend because I'm like in this state and they can't be there because of COVID. So I've called her, I've explained to her what's going on. She's losing it, going, where are these people? I've called the thing. I've waited for 2 hours. Someone finally comes, moves me onto the like visitor seat next to me, which is a leather seat. So like if you've ever sat on a leather, I'm sticking to this thing. And she's like, oh, I'm going to change your bed and I'll be back. I didn't see her for the rest of the night until the changeover of the nurses at 8:30 in the morning. So I stayed on that couch covered in fluid and pus with open wounds for about 6 hours, let alone how cold I am because I'm soaking wet and like all these things. And, all I get was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Yeah, she doesn't work here. Now it's Monday. It's a full-time nurse. She knows me. I've been there and, takes care of me. These like that is neglect. As simple as that is. And so not only at least I got away with it, there were no issues came out of that, but mentally a lot came out of that and none of it's positive, you know? So yeah, that sort of concluded that. And after 9 days, the first like 6 days, like I said, between ICU and all that nausea were brutal, but I sort of recovered quite quickly. My stoma was still really puffed up. But after 9 days, they were happy for me to go home. So they sent me home. And at this point, I'm at my mum's house. I'm in, you know, the guest room just around the corner. They're keeping an eye on me this whole time. And I'm in a lot of pain, but I've had this massive surgeries. It's to be expected. I would say my pain tolerance is quite high. So sometimes it's detrimental to me because I don't know when to call it. And this was exactly that. So after about 2 days, I my stoma had turned black, and the entire time I was in pulsating pain. So I would feel like something's trying to get pushed out, but nothing was coming out. And so that my stomach just felt like rock hard and felt like it was cracking. And it was just pulsating throughout the day and night. And so for 2 days, I was pretty much awake and then trying to get like micro naps when I wasn't in pain. And we called my stoma nurse, like they said, and like they send you home and they say, call us if you have any questions, blah, blah, blah. We called them when we were leaving the parking lot of the hospital. They didn't even answer. And at this point, they were still not answering. So again, my stoma nurse is really good at what she does. And I've now worked not yet with them, but with the regional nurses, and all of them know each other. They're all amazing what they do. I don't discredit what they do at all. But I know how good of a care they took when I was in hospital. So how can I expect them to take care of me when I'm home when now someone's taking my place? They're taking care of someone that was exactly in my position. How does that work? And so at this point, we had to rely on social media, and we found someone who was this Aussie guy called Harrison, great dude, helped us out. He was talking with my girlfriend the whole time. And on the second night that I was home, I had pretty much given up. It was like 1 a.m. All I wanted to do was go to sleep. I couldn't function anymore. Like, I had come to the point where like there was no point trying to fight the pain. The pain had just taken everything away from me. Like, I couldn't feel anything. I didn't, it like overcome my whole body. I didn't feel the pain anymore. I was just like, I want to go to bed and not wake up. Uh, yeah, my girlfriend called my mum in. They had to put me on an office chair and carry me down these stairs, put me in the car, and then drive me to the hospital. Where that car ride, they have only started talking about it to me recently. And, like it's a massive, massive mental factor for my family and the people around me. That event was life changing for everyone involved, and I don't even remember it. But from what I've been told, the whole car ride, I was waking up and screaming in agony and falling back into just passing out. And like my body would go limp. They weren't sure what was going on, if I was alive. I would come back to my senses, start screaming again, like completely lost control and function of my whole body at that point. And when I got to hospital, they injected me with 2 doses of morphine and put me on a drip of fentanyl. And after an hour of being there, my surgeon had gotten to the hospital and was operating on me at 3 a.m. in like the middle of the week. So, I mean, I'm so thankful for the care that I got. But yeah, I mean, that night I can't believe it even happened. I feel like I'm watching it from someone else's perspective because I didn't even experience it. Like, that wasn't me. They did another 9-hour operation on me. And then from then on, I was in hospital for a month, and I was fed by a PICC line at the top of my heart. And I had the nasal gastric tube back in, which was like a massive issue. Now I have to cauterize my nose every 6 months because of all the damage that I have in my nose and in the back of my throat. And uh, like that month was where, I said to myself, like, if I come out of this alive, I need to prioritize my health and like grab life with everything that it's got, because like I've just seen how resilient my body is. I've got the proof now. Like, there is no excuse for you to be lazy and go and expend all your energy on shit that makes your life harder, you know? Like, that's essentially what it is, and I see people around me who don't notice the patterns that they're falling into. And, when you see them after a year, they're still dealing with the same issues. And it's just that repetitive, that repetitive motion that they get into that's just so detrimental to your health. And the silver lining of my surgery was that I was able to get that perspective. And now when I look at life, I came out of hospital. I went to one of my best mates' birthdays. We had the best time ever. I was completely sober, and I see people around me complaining about not getting in someone's Uber and whatever. And I'm just sitting here going, I haven't felt wind on my face for the last month. I haven't opened the door for myself. Like, I haven't been able to walk around. People were wheeling me around, opening all the doors for me. I was in a box for a month. Like, I don't care about these issues you guys have. I have this perspective now, and it's hard because you can't blame anyone around you for not having the same perspective, but it's definitely makes it difficult for you to fit in because you've been through something that so many people will never ever experience. And I went through it at the age that I did. So now it's just given me this massive leap into a world of, just being really, really grateful and being really, I don't know, like I'm very meticulous on the way that I do things and go about life now. And I'm able to take my health for for everything that it's got and just live a life that I never thought would be possible and that I haven't lived since I was 15, like it's just incredible.
You are some man. My God. I see
Yeah,
you've been tortured.
I
You've
just
been
rambled
absolutely.
on, like we said.
Oh, that was I didn't jump in because like you were just on a roll, man. My God, your story. Every next sentence, there's another layer to what has gone on, another layer to what has gone on. Like not only did
Mm.
you eventually get the surgery after coming back, but also you got tortured post surgery, like the stoma going black and the pain you were in, and obviously the experience for your girlfriend, your mother, your family. There's just so many different layers to what goes on, and like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease are a diagnosis, but then there's also the domino effect of all the other things that come along. Like as I said, having to cauterize your nose. These are the things people don't hear about, and think, oh yeah, you have a stomach issue or whatever. My God, no. There's all the other things that you have to put up with. Now,
I actually have a funny story about the nose because I know I'll forget this if I don't say it now. When I went to France to race in August, I got a bit of like a stuffy nose from flying and like the aircon for 20 hours, as you do. And so I was blowing my nose a couple of times, and all of a sudden on the plane, I start just getting a massive nosebleed because I've blown my nose a couple of times now. And just if I blow my nose more than 3 times with this nostril, it'll bleed, like without a doubt, even if I've had it cauterized. So I'm on the plane, massive nosebleed, and I'm getting sick. So my nose keeps needing to be blown. I had probably 5 or 6 nosebleeds on that flight. And then I had the week in France. Every day I had at least one nosebleed because I'm still sick at this point. And then I had my race. And in the first 5Ks, my nose starts pissing blood. I'm in a white shirt. So there's just blood all over me. And I thought my nose was just like leaking as you do when you're running. And so I went like this. There's just a streak of blood all over my arm. And I'm just like, again, these are the things that you would never ever think about. But it is that domino effect where it's all from this nasal gastric tube that initially was in for a week. I got away with that, but then I went back into hospital and had it for 2 more weeks, and then that just completely took me out of business. Like my nose just doesn't function the same anymore.
that's it. Like all these things that have to be done to alleviate the symptom or the problem that's happening at the time, but they have such a long-term effect on our lives. Like I have an issue with urinating because a guy put a catheter in. He put in a tube that was too big into a hole that couldn't really fit it. And since then, I still have issues urinating, especially if I go for a few drinks with the lads. You have a couple of pints, the next thing you're like, oh God, I'm going to the bathroom every 5 seconds. But
Yeah.
these are the bits that, people don't hear about. And it's
Yeah.
it's great to
100%.
be able to come on here and speak about the actual other effects and different things that happen, because these are the little known things that happen due to our experience in hospitals. And as you said, with the thing with the stoma nurse, I know I've recently spoken to my own stoma nurse, and she said there's that missing bridge in the community where they're able to give you the care they can give you in the hospital, but once you come home, you have to contact them and you're waiting on a phone call. And as you said, they're now looking after someone else who has taken your place. So there's definitely a missing bridge there in the care. And unfortunately, as you went through, now I've never experienced that. When you were speaking, I said we have a lot of similarities in the different things that happened after surgeries, but the black stoma and the hard stomach, now that is scary. My God.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was actually because, so they called it a mechanical obstruction. So essentially your bowel is obstructed, but there's nothing that's technically obstructing it. So it's actually just, it's perceiving that there's a reason to stop the movement of your bowel, but there's nothing that's actually there. And then when I spoke to the regional stoma nurses not that long ago at a conference, they actually brought it up and were surprised that they didn't explain why the mechanical blockage happened, and they were wondering, is there any investigation? Because I had robotic keyhole surgery, and one of the biggest problems with robotic keyhole surgery is having either fascia that's too tight or too loose. And if it's too tight, you will get a mechanical blockage. And if it's too loose, you're pretty much bound to get a hernia, like a peristomal hernia, right after surgery. One in the next couple of weeks, essentially. So if it is an error from the robot, so be it, right? I'm not trying to say I'm coming at your throat. What I'm trying to say is who's actually looking into it and finding out where the issue was. Because if this is an issue that's common enough for the stoma nurses to know about it and for them to have been the ones to tell me about it years after the fact, who's doing the background checks? Who's going in and going, well, why is this issue such a big thing? Can we avoid it? Surely we can avoid it, right? Like it's got to be obviously personalized to the person, I'm sure, but there's got to be some sort of way to avoid it. And if not, there's got to be some sort of investigation into why it happened and keeping someone updated, because it nearly took my life, and I'm grateful for my surgeon and the care he took, and the hospital took great care of me after the fact. But why did it even happen? Again, I think it doesn't come down to people not caring about the problem, but I think it just comes down to the staff being so spread thin. They just don't have the time to stop what they're doing and look into this issue. And there's not any business that's trying to pay a person to just be there to look at these things. So how do you fix that issue?
It seems to be the case with everyone I speak to, no matter what country it is. All of our health system is just spread so thin. And unfortunately, these things slip through the cracks and these other problems come, which then burden the system even more, trying to fix issues that maybe could have prevented if we had enough staff and enough people to look into the issues to try and fix them before they become bigger issues. So it's very
absolutely
frustrating when you think that something has happened to you that could have been avoided and like has this absolute massive effect on your life since.
Just for a moment, I want to take a break from the pod to speak to you about Ostique Connect from Salts Healthcare. One of the hardest things about living with a stoma or living with IBD can be the isolation that comes with it. I know from my own experience, chronic illness can be a very lonely place. I've been very vocal about the effect it had on me in my teenage years and how my actual fear of getting a stoma and living life with a bag nearly ended up me not being here today. If I'd had a way to connect with other people who were living with IBD or they were living with a stoma, I could have learned from their lived experience. It would have eased so much the fear of what I was going through. Connecting and learning from another is exactly why I started this podcast, which is why I want to tell you about Ostique Connect by Salts. It's the first ever peer-to-peer support app for people who are managing gut health conditions. So whether you have a stoma now, maybe you'll have one in the future, or you've had one in the past, Ostique Connect has a bespoke algorithm that helps you meet people from all over the world. People who've been on a similar journey to your own. So through the app, you can make supportive connections and you can have one-to-one conversations. It also gives you the chance to join forums and connect with a larger group of people. You can ask and you can answer any questions that arise. It's a great place to provide support in a safe space. And there's also helpful blogs and there's podcast episodes too. Ostique Connect by Salts is available to download via the Apple App Store and Google Play. So if you want to check it out, click the links in the episode description or simply search Ostique Connect. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to the episode.
Have you had a peristomal hernia?
I have not.
No.
I've had prolapses during my training, but I'm a big advocate on training with compression. I do everything with compression. And I also talk a lot about how when I came out of hospital, 4 months after hospital, I did a sprint triathlon because I signed up for it and I was like, I'm going to go for it. I got away with doing that. But after doing it, I definitely realized like this is not sustainable. I need to build a foundation. I'm so glad I did it. Definitely. I wouldn't take it back because it proved to me that I can do this. But I really made sure after doing that for the next year and a half, I was only just training on my repetition, just getting time on legs. And whether that looked like walking for half an hour, then so be it. Whatever I felt like doing that day, I was going to just do it and just appreciate that I was just outside and moving. And that's the mindset I had. And obviously that wears off, like the glamour of I got a brand new life wears off. But if you build a foundation that's strong enough during that time, that doesn't go away. And so I started walking, and then I would go, all right, well, run to that pole or run for the next minute, run till you feel like stopping. And so I'd run, and whether it was a minute or not, I would then start walking again. And I just do these little loops. And where I was living at that time was really nice because it was around the city. And so I'd follow the river around. And, that's just kind of how I not only got to appreciate the little things again, but I just started to build that foundation as a runner. And when I did the triathlon, I was sure I was definitely a runner, definitely not a swimmer. And at that point, I was just borrowing a bike from my friend. So I didn't have the choice to be a cyclist yet. But yeah, I just really built the foundation. And the year after, in 2024, I had my first sort of couple of races where I was interested in dabbling into some stuff. And I did a half marathon um, early in the year. And then I did another half marathon. And at that point, I'd put a really solid training block. And so I placed sixth. And then I was like, all right, I'm on a roll here. I want to do the Sunshine Coast Marathon. So it's a really nice spot in Australia. It's up north in Queensland. So it was kind of going to be like a getaway sort of marathon thing. It was going to be cool for my first marathon, but I ended up having stress fractures because I increased my load too much, too quickly.
Never stops, does it?
Right. Of course. I'm an extremist with everything I do, whether it's good or bad. And so that's why now I'm grateful that I surround myself with things that are good, but I will be an extremist in every sense of everything that I do in life. And so, yeah, it's just one of these things where now with my coach, I actually have her not only to structure my training, and she's amazing at what she does, but she's also such a good brake pedal when I need it. And she's able to go, oh, and it's okay for you to take this day off. Like, it's fine. It doesn't matter if you miss this training. It's okay for you to stop, because she knows that I'm trying and I'm giving it everything when I'm training. I'm not actually just sitting at home not wanting to train. If I'm not training, it's because there's a reason. So, that year was sort of like the whole figuring out year. And because of the stress fractures, I scrapped the Sunshine Coast Marathon idea. And I had my brother's wedding in Bali. So we went over to Bali. And then after that, my girlfriend and I went to Borneo. I don't know if you know about Borneo, but it's a super remote island in Malaysia, and Indonesia also owns part of it, but it's got wild orangutans. Like, it's just Jurassic Park over there. So we had a couple of weeks over there, and we did a lot of hiking, and we felt great. And in the capital city, they have a 4,100 meter peak. And so we decided to do a 2-day summit push and did that. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, my legs feel good. I'm good to go again. And when I got back, I had a friend who was like, I can't do the Melbourne Marathon. It's in 5 weeks. Do you want to do it? I'm back on.
Can't stop this train, mate.
So I'm just steaming down the road, and I got to Melbourne Marathon feeling decent for 5 weeks of training. And yeah, I went out there. I was on track with the 3-hour pacer. I had like this goal to do a sub 3-hour marathon as my first marathon.
You're
so
insane.
I'm like pushing. 30 Ks, I blew up, fell apart. This day, I've still never felt the pain I felt at that 30K mark. And I hobbled it home, and I think I brought it back at 3 hours, 45 minutes, or 3 hours, 50, around that. So still a respectable time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But standard, in typical fashion for me, I just absolutely just blew myself up again. And, I don't know how I took that as yeah, you're good to go. Like, you're a great runner. But then I signed up right after it to a backyard ultra marathon, like 8 weeks later in December, early December. But the format for this race is a 2.5 kilometer lap that's half an hour long, but every 2 laps, the time goes down by 1 minute. So it gets faster and faster as the kilometers climb. So again, I'm like super keen on this, just coming in and going, I'm probably going to do about 70 Ks, and then I'll see how I go. I've only done a marathon before. Then I started training thinking, all right, I know how to train for a marathon. So I'll probably just train like that and just keep adding kilometers. Like this loop format, 2.5 kilometers in half an hour at the start is nothing. You do that super quickly. So you end up having a lot of time to sit down, to eat. Like here I've just brought a whole table of food and just like gone, I'm going to tell you if I feel like eating at some point. Like I'm just completely oblivious to the fact that there's strategy to the sport. And to top it off, the morning of, we get there at 6 a.m. It's already 25 degrees and it's going to be 32 degrees. There's no shelter. It's red sand on some of the course. Like it's boiling hot out there. I haven't even taken into consideration not having a colon and how that impacts my hydration yet.
You're a maniac.
You can only imagine how that went. I got out there, I did 6 hours of running, and on the second last lap, I came in, my support crew was my family. I sat down at someone else's gazebo thinking it was mine. Then they grab me and they bring me to this tent that's just spraying like water mist, trying to cool me down because they've seen I've lost my mind. And sat me down, I'm getting wet, and I hear the bell that's like 10-second warning for the next lap. And you have to be in the starting corral or else you're eliminated by the time the lap starts. So I just got up without saying anything and just go to the starting corral. Start gun goes off, run up the hill because the first 250 meters are just this climb. And luckily, my brother's wife's cousin was there. He's a maniac as well. He just decides to sign up to marathons the next day and just goes and runs it. He's just a maniac. So he's come out with me, seeing how bad I am. And I get to the top of this hill. I look at him, look at the ground, vomit all over the ground, and just passed out straight into it. So, again, just learning my lessons the hard way. But I walked it home. I finished the lap. I actually tried to run because when I woke back up, I got up, and because my blood pressure, I think it drops when you vomit, but or rises. Either way, I felt cold, and I'm like, oh, it feels nice out here, and started running, and both my calves cramped, and I fell over again. And my cousin looks at me, he goes, like, let's just call it here. I'm like, all right, let's at least walk it back. Like, we'll finish this lap. So we walked it in and I timed out, and I learned a lot that race. Like for 3 days after, I was stuttering. I couldn't get my sentences out properly. I couldn't sleep. I had just got really bad heat stroke, and I knew I had to take a break, and I said, it's pretty convenient. It's December. 1st of Jan, I really need to lock in. If I want to keep running, I can't keep doing this. I had such bad symptoms from that heat stroke, it's not sustainable. And so, I bought a bike, cycled during December, just doing light cross training, just because I still wanted to be active. But 1st of Jan, I was locked in, dialed, had my training plan sorted, and I had secretly signed up for the ballot for the Ultra Trail Australia after the last legend race, that backyard ultra. But I didn't think anything of it because that race had already sold out. So it was just kind of like, if people end up backing out and refunding their tickets, you might get picked. I quit my job on the 3rd week of December, and the day after I got into the race, and I hadn't told anyone yet. And I was going to see all my family for this Christmas and New Year's, so I kept it a secret. I was still like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this running thing. I kind of scared everyone with how far I pushed it. And on New Year's, I was like, hey guys, I'm running 100 Ks.
Surprise!
In May, the Australasian major.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, this year, that was at the start of this year, and this year has just been incredible. The boundaries I've been able to push, and with, realistically, really little friction coming from my body has just been so incredible. And I just really think that even though stupidly I just went out and threw it all out there and risked my health, I learned a lot. And now in the position that I'm in, talking to a lot of people that are coming out post-op, I'm able to just be like, hey, avoid this. Like one of the biggest things that I have a hydrolyte every morning now. And like even that just has made a world of a difference. I'm not crashing in the afternoons. I'm not having aches at night. I'm not having, the cold sweats and all these things from dehydration, which I wasn't really educated about even post-op. I'm able to just talk to people and go, "Hey, like, try this out. I promise you it's a game changer." And, that's translated into my training as well with my hydration, which has been like the biggest thing I've had to dial in because, when you're pushing for 20 hours, if you're not taking in, enough sodium that you can really take that all in and absorb it, you're risking incredible health like events. If that's a way to say it. You can have rhabdo, you can die from these things, and it's not worth the risk. Not when it's actually such a beautiful experience if you're doing it well and within the parameters of the processes that you've set. So yeah, the education on that side of things has been incredible to learn from like a first-hand experience, but now to be able to kind of start mapping out a sort of guidebook on how to help others has been, you know, twice as good. And I never expected it to be something I could do from running.
Like hearing you speak, it's like you find your limits, you push yourself to the absolute point of endurance, and then you go, don't do what I did.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Like you have to touch both sides of the scale to see how far you can tip either way. That's
Yeah.
the way I see it. And if you trust yourself enough, I really don't think I would allow myself to die out there. But I know that I have pushed myself beyond what a lot of people would think is reasonable. That I can say I understand, but I still think that I have enough common sense and will to live that I wouldn't allow it to get to a point where it would be life or death.
I definitely think with disease, we get pushed to our limits with no choice, and we find out where we can go when we don't want to find out where we can go. And then I think it's such a beautiful thing to come out and say, right, I know where I've been pushed to with no choice in it, and now I can see where I can actually push myself to with the choice. And
Oh,
it's great that you're using everything that you can do as a guide. But my God, there's no limits in your head.
no way. No way. And I
Maybe
can
some limits in the body, but not in the head.
easily, I have never felt as much pain running as I felt when I was in hospital or when I was dealing with my ulcerative colitis. And I've never felt as drained as I felt when I had ulcerative colitis. It doesn't even compare. And so that fuel when you're out there is ridiculous. I can really just sit back and let myself fall into this pit of pain because I'm comfortable there. And, it's the same physical adaptations, when you're training and when even in the gym or running is really the best example for me because I know it so well, but it translates into life. Running realistically, obviously you have your cardiovascular adaptations, but it's realistically a way of being able to deal with pain over a long time. And so when I run 100 kilometers, I still feel like my legs are sore and tight in the first 2Ks. And I still go, when I'm training, I still go 10Ks like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. Like there are times where my legs feel shot from the get-go. But I know that I can just set that aside. And, with the whole concept of the pain cave, which is a massive thing in ultra running and everyone talks about it, I love the way that people describe it differently because, I love Courtney Dauwalter. She's such a goat in the scene. She's one, if not arguably the best woman trail runner, ultra trail runner in the world. And her way of talking about the pain cave of being in a dark cave and chipping at it with a chisel. Every time she's there, the room gets bigger. And so when she gets into the room next, it's a big room. It's already got plenty of space. And so, I just find it so interesting the way people see it because for me, with the way that I had to deal with pain, in a hospital bed, I kind of see it as like I've created a balcony that I can just sit in this balcony and accept the fact that I'm in this dark hole and I can look down and go, wow, it can be bad out here, but I can still find the peace and the stability of knowing I can deal with the pain and just sitting there and writing it out because with every low comes a high. And with 20 hours of running, you're going to go through roller coasters of that. But as long as you can just keep that stability in your head and just keep yourself calm, yeah, the pain's there, but the pain's just a warning sign that you are making adaptations to your body that it's never had before. It's not actually telling you to stop. And if it was telling you that you were dying, then we would have all died in hospital because we were in pain the whole time. But you were able to come out of it on the other side. So at what point does pain just become a warning sign that you could put aside, and or does it become, a trigger that you really need to look into this? And that's where that fine line is. And that's really something that I've tried to become better at over these years of training and with the disease, for
Definitely. I
sure.
think mind mastery definitely comes from your ability to observe what's going on rather than react to what's going on. And it seems like you have that locked in.
Yeah,
Because
well,
when,
that's it. That's it. 100%. You got to appreciate everything. And sorry to cut you off, but
no, no, go, go.
like with the 100Ks, that's what I say. I go, you go out there, and even if I'm 2 kilometers away from the checkpoint and, I can stop there and eat, if I see a really nice view and I go, I'm just going to stop and appreciate it and have some food here, then I will, because mentally I am just doing what is making me happy and what is making me able to get through this entire day, just small bite-sized chunks that you can just, digest throughout the day, and it just makes it mentally that much easier.
It's beautiful because it really is the power of now and living actually in the moment. You have a real appreciation when you can actually detach from thinking of the future, thinking of the past, and actually living in the present moment. And as you said, taking that moment to watch the view, that's really what it's all about, isn't it? Like, because, you're not living in the future like, oh, I have to get there, I have to get this done. You're actually completely present in the moment and the action that you're taking. So
Yeah.
it's an amazing thing that you've gone from severe health issues to mind in mastery, as much as anyone can kind of master the mind, as we say, to go through what you've done. Like, it's so inspirational for me I'd love to do ultramarathon running. And always in my own head, the thought was, I don't know if I can do that with the stoma. Obviously, I've never had a prolapse. I'm very fearful of it. When
Yeah.
you see a video and next thing you have an image trapped in your head and you're like, oh my God, that could happen.
Oh,
But seeing the likes of yourself, and there's another guy, Alex McInnes, he's got a Canadian guy, and seeing that ye have taken these steps means I'm like, I can learn from these boys and I can actually, go and take steps to put my own plan in place. So it's amazing to hear these sort of things. So I'm
sure.
definitely going to have to
Yeah.
knock into you
Yeah.
about,
You have
I'm,
to do it.
I'm
There's no
buzzing.
turning back now that we've spoken. You have to do it.
I'm in trouble now. It's on camera.
Yeah, yeah. No, you won't regret it. And, again, it just spills into so many different aspects of your life. Like, you thank yourself for it, because the race is essentially just the celebration. It's actually the consistency that you've been able to hold yourself accountable and hold yourself to for X amount of weeks. If you're going for 100Ks, like, your minimum putting 16 weeks of training in consistently. That's a massive thing. Try to be consistent at anything for 16 weeks, even just simple tasks that you need to do day to day. A lot of people still can't do that for 16 weeks straight. So to add everything that you already do plus training brings this pride inside of you that you don't have to prove to anyone else, and that you're not wearing as this boasting sort of pride, but it just makes me know that when I'm able to talk to people who have those ambitions to be in a certain situation that they never expected themselves to be able to be in, I can give them not only the best advice, but the motivation that, yeah, you can do that. And you're going to be so much better off for it. You're going to be such a better person, and you're just going to be so much happier for it. Like, it's a beautiful thing.
It comes back to something you said earlier. Essentially, all I could think was that the hard shit that you do makes life easy. And if you stick doing the easy shit, life just gets very hard to take from what everything you've done is. You've done the hard shit. You've pushed yourself to your absolute limits. And look at you, you're absolutely flying it. Like, it's inspirational. There's no other word to put onto it, really.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. And, you go out there, like, I love running. It's overcome my whole life, and I think about it so much because of how much it relates to your life and everything that you do. And not only that, the people you meet out there. You realize you have so much in common with so many people around you for so many different reasons. And with endurance sports, realistically, it's controlled trauma. You're all out there putting yourself through something that is ridiculously hard, but you're doing it because you choose to do it. And a lot of people that are out there, you'll find, have had a lot of lack of control in their lives and a lot of things that have happened that were really out of their control. And so now they're able to get that control back by doing something that they know they're good at. They know they can experience pain. They know they can experience that trauma and grow from it. They didn't shy away from it in the past. So now here they are out in the mountains pushing themselves. It's such a beautiful thing, you know. Talk to these people and you end up becoming best friends over 10 kilometers and you never see them again. You know, it's like, it's the coolest thing.
Isn't
It's
that,
the best.
that's the beautiful thing about the community in the sense of all this stuff is that, as you said, you can go run with someone for 10 kilometers, with best mates and never see them again, but everyone's in the same boat, everyone's pushing towards the same goal, and there's just that real appreciation of each other and helping each other
Yeah.
get across the finish line. Like, I know when I spoke to Alex McGuinness, he said Crohn's disease is much like ultramarathon running because you're in the woods, you're in the forest, you're on your own, you're hallucinating from pain. It's horrible, but you know, as he said himself as well, his family was there supporting him as his support team. So as much as he was on his own, he knew he had the support with them as well. So that's how he makes the
Yeah.
analogy of Crohn's disease, is where you are fighting this disease on your own, but with the support of everyone helping you get through it. It's just it's a beautiful thing to be able to speak about.
For sure. I mean, I guess my 200K experiences, and it's crazy to say both of them because at the start of this year I had none, but they're so different. You know, I guess to talk about this year, I put that training plan, super strict training and diet. I also did a 12-week transformation with a gym program near my house. So I was getting a personal trainer at the gym for 12 weeks, which was really, really good because for me, the gym has never been like something that interesting. I love to go there. I'd love to look a certain way, but I don't like want to go to the gym the same way I want to go running. So I really needed someone to hold me accountable, and I needed like someone to kind of just take that sense of needing to think about what do I do at the gym? Like, I just wanted everything to be there for me. I know how many reps I need to go for. I know what weight I did last week. Like, take that away from me and I'll actually appreciate it. And so I did that for 12 weeks, which like changed my whole way of thinking. Again, 12 weeks being consistent at something, it's now a habit. And so that like just propelled me into a year of being able to balance the gym and my running. And so I had, you know, from January to May to train for my 100K plus what I'd done for the last 2 years. I broke it up with a 42K trail marathon in March that I did and got 7th place in my age group. So I was like, I knew that what I was doing was working, but between March and May was when I started prolapses. And that's again, like the whole learning thing. I was overtraining at the gym. I was pushing too hard. Every time I was at the gym, I was pretty much trying to either top what I was doing last time or better the form. And so that stacked on with double days of running, because at that point I started doing 5 days of running, 3 days of gym, 2 days of cycling. But that was from essentially like 4 days of running with nothing else. So it was a big step again. Like,
360, yeah.
and so my body took it really well at the start because the load was low on all 3 things. But then I just added that, I kind of did the 1% rule where I'm adding, you know, 1 to 5% a week on everything. So at one point it started overloading again.
Max out like.
Another lesson. So, you know, I sort of stepped back on the gym side of things, and then I ramped the running up again, and then I ramped the cross training up, and that started working. I got to the 100K. I mean, I felt so good. I was super prepped, and I was lucky enough to, after the 42K in March, I was picked up by Ox for the headphone sponsor. And so I was picked as one of the 11 Australians in the Australian team for this race. And I was also sponsored by a toe sock company, Relly, which, I mean, we'll keep talking about my relationship with them so far, but these guys are just like incredible and have been so supportive since we've joined together, that it's just shown me again that there are businesses and people out there that like really want to grow this adaptive space. And so the more we get people involved and to show them that you are able to do this, the more that adaptive space is going to grow, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. So, you know, I was super lucky to pick up those sponsors, and the race was brutal. It was, you know, it was a great day. The weather was pretty good during the day. The terrain out in the Blue Mountains in Sydney is so up and down. It's ridiculous. We had all sorts of terrain. We had mud, we had rocks, we had, you know, areas where you were climbing on with your hands, you know, sliding on your ass. It was just crazy. It was so much more than the distance for me at that point. I had dreamed of this, and I had visualized it for so long that I couldn't believe it was happening. And I think, you know, the emotions, although they were positive, really made the race harder for me, because I was like in so many different headspaces, like just couldn't believe that I was doing it. I couldn't believe that I was like at 60 Ks and still feeling good. And, you know, just all these things were just crazy to me. And then I started encountering the problems, nutrition problems. I couldn't eat anymore. Then the night came around and it rained all night. It was like 3 degrees by the time I finished. So it was freezing cold, but wet. It was, yeah, really, really hard to bring it home. But that's where the race started. And when I finished, man, as cliche as it can sound, the lessons that I learned from that race and the things that I figured out about myself, because when you're out there and you want to give up, but you got people who've come all the way out for you, you've created this whole narrative of what you're going to do, the person that you are, how strong you are mentally, all these things. There is only you that's bringing you home. And if you don't have what it takes, you are going to take the easy way out, because it's so easy. When it's pouring and it's dark and you got 90 Ks in your legs and you got this massive hill in front of you, yeah, like if your bed was an option, you would get in that bed straight away without even thinking, you know? So, yeah, it just teaches you so much about who you are and how big your potential actually is. It just lit this fire in me. And a week after the race, Shocks announced that I was the winner of the Australian team for the golden ticket, and they wanted me to go race in France. Again, my first year of doing these ultras, and I couldn't even believe, like the whole time they had said, once we were picked in the team, one of you guys will have the chance to go race at the UTMB week in France. And I was just laughing with my family going, I imagine. And a week after, I got picked. And luckily, now in hindsight, I only qualified for the marathon from Switzerland to Chamonix, which was so brutal. It was harder than my 100K, and I wanted to do 140Ks, but I didn't qualify for it. I wanted to do this race out there. And my coach, after the 100K, I picked up my coach, and she was like, "Don't do the 140Ks. Like that race is crazy. You need to get used to the alpine terrain out there before you do something like that." So I went to France, like we said, and that was an amazing race.
It's my dream race,
Yeah, like. Yeah, apart from the first 17 kilometers being 2,100 meters of vertical gain, that, like, I mean, in itself, I did enough gain to be at the summit of the tallest mountain in Australia from sea level. It's like, that sort of terrain doesn't exist here, even if I'm going to our alpine region. So to get to, you know, the Col de la Forclaz, which was 2,500 meters in the air, when our tallest mountain in Australia is 2,100, was already like, how do I even train for this? I had a goal time of 5.5 hours. I actually finished in 6.5 hours. And when I crossed the finish line, I was sort of upset about it, you know, going, fuck, I really thought I had a better time. I had better legs in me, and I'd been training so hard with my coach, Simone. And I looked around and there's like photographers taking photos of me. And I'm like, all right, hold on, I'm a bit confused what's going on. And this guy comes up to me and goes, "Mate, you're the first Australian to cross the finish line. How do you feel?" And that's when I was like, "Oh, and you just finished one of the introductory races, one of the most invitational races in the world, at the biggest week of ultra trail running in the world. And it's only been about 8 months since you actually started taking this seriously. Like, give up the fucking tough guy act, like, have a smile. You just did something incredible. And then, and then that's when I just took it all and I was like, wow, I just did that. I can't believe I just did that. And yeah, that was, still such a surreal experience. And it just slingshotted me into what I just did, which was the COSI 100K. And I mean, this race, although there was a bit less elevation than the one I did earlier this year, I PB'd it by 4 hours. I finished in
Just
16
a
and a half.
casual 4 hour PB.
I got to 90 Ks and it was still daylight. When my last 100K, I got to 50 Ks and it was dark. Like, that's the perspective. So it was an awesome race. And I actually, I feel like I've been rambling on so much, but I must
That's
say,
gold, yeah.
the week before the 100K, I was lucky enough to be a part of the adaptive ability team at the Great Southern Endurance Run. And this sort of came about last minute by a guy that I met in France who was another Australian racing the same race as me called Mick Marshall. This guy's story is bloody incredible. And he used to be a professional ultra runner, but he got injured in a workplace accident. And now he has orthopedics and he's in crutches, but he's still doing ultra marathons. And so he did the same race as me in France. And I'm telling you, the technicality of these tracks, like, made it so, so difficult. I've never experienced something that hard, and he's doing it in crutches. Like, this man's a beast. And we spoke in France and we got each other's contacts and everything. And he called me with a proposal to do this relay race at the Great Southern Endurance Race. And mate, when I tell you this was like the most mind-blowing experience I've ever been a part of, the guy who started it, Dale Pierce, is he's a low vision athlete. Technically, he's not blind because he can see from one eye, but the way he explained it to us was when we were sitting about 1.5 meters away from him, he said, "You look like you're 2 swimming pools away from me." So you can only imagine, right? And he did the first 8 kilometers of our race in trail, non-supported, without a guide, just with his cane, meta glasses that he's talking to, asking how does the terrain look and getting feedback and having the GPS on his watch. And he did the 8Ks in 1 hour and 15 minutes. Like, he's an absolute maniac. So
Yeah,
when he passed it on to
lunatic.
me, I was like, I've got to keep this up. Like, you can't just set the tone like that and
Yeah.
just expect me to take it easy. And it's a week before, my 100K. So my coach is like, take it easy, and I'm like, yeah, I will 100%. And my section was 17 kilometers, pretty much just all downhill coming down Mount Hotham. So it was 300 meters of vertical gain and 1,600 meters of vertical loss. But because we started 45 minutes before the race actually started, when Dale passed me the GPS, I was in 4th place. So not only did he put just a heroic stint in, but here I was with the front pack and I really wanted to see how I fared up against him.
Of
So
course, yeah.
I just went for it and I gunned it down that 17 kilometers. I got passed by 2 people, came into the checkpoint in 6th place. And yeah, I mean, that day was just incredible. Had Steve, who filled in, one of the runners who was supposed to be part of the adaptive team couldn't come. So we had a late ring in. He did the hardest section of the course on 3 days' notice, 25 Ks. And then Mick did the last 8 Ks on his, 5 Ks on his crutches, bringing us all in. And so we're the first ever adaptive athlete team to finish the Great Southern Endurance Run. And they're also, the Great Southern Endurance Run organization is also the first ultra running company. Well, I don't know if they're the first. I don't want to speak out of line, but they're definitely really on board with growing this adaptive athlete scene and helping it grow. And they've just shown the world that it's possible.
Yeah.
So it's just so, so exciting for what's to come next year. Mostly I want to get into that, and I'm already working with a couple events next year that we can hopefully get adaptive athletes their own category to hopefully just entice people to just participate. I have to do a lot more things than the average person has to do when they're out there, let alone how hard the feat is. So why do I compare myself to people that are fully capable, fully able? But I'm not going to run around calling myself disabled. I'm going to do it either way, whether we give me a category or not. I would appreciate it, and I think a lot of other people would too. You know,
Yeah, 100%. And I know the word disabled is bandied around a lot when it comes to people with ostomy and stuff. It's not particularly a word I would ever use to describe myself. I think, God, I'm so lucky that I have this ostomy and now I can go and achieve. I feel it has made me differently abled, but it has 110% made me able.
really, yeah,
There's opportunities that have come into my life that without having an ostomy would never have existed. I wouldn't be here to experience them. So it has 100% made me able to exist and achieve no more than yourself. Like, you are here and you're smashing it with a group of savages out in the course like that.
and that whole group, I'm like, guys, like we've got to do more. You know, like we've
Yeah.
done it. Now we got to keep going. And like if you're ever coming over here, you have to get one in. We have to do it.
Fact.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know, let me know when you're booking your trip over, because I just think that what you get out of it is so instrumental to all the other aspects of your life for you to do well, that like you just won't regret it. And the more people get into physical exercise, the more they'll realize that like it is the answer to a lot of issues that we're seeing in everyday life. A lot
Com-
of issues.
Completely. Not just the physical aspect of being fit, but the mental. It's all part of the same package, you know. I know when I go for a run, I feel so good afterwards, physically, mentally. It just has such a trigger effect. It gets into every facet of your life after that. Like, so it's just putting the
Yeah.
right practices in place to make sure that life is good. But you've spoken beautifully, but I definitely want to ask you about Stride. You're repping the T now. We got to figure out what Stride is.
Of course. Stride's my baby. It's what I've been growing for, the last 2.5 years, pretty much. With all this training that I've been doing, I had to try and find garments that work and that can keep me safe. Like I said, I'm big on compression to avoid all the injuries and the hernias and the prolapses. And yeah, I just couldn't find something that worked in the way that I wanted it to work. Don't get me wrong, there are things out there that do work for for what they are in face value, right? So the way I sort of categorized it was, you've got your medical garments that do their job incredibly well, but they hold you like a cast. They're not mobile, and the range of versatility with those garments is super low, whether it's in sort of the color variants, that it's black or beige, or that they're all universal cuts. So they're really uncomfortable around the crotch. And, for me, with compression boxes that I wear, how is that supposed to work over 100 kilometers? So we're talking 100 to 120,000 steps, 20 hours sweating, and you're having your underwear, then you have your compression boxes, then you have shorts. You have 3 layers that are supposed to coexist with each other and work. Like that just doesn't work, and it causes so many issues between like chafing, which is like a massive one, but also, the corner of your bag cutting into your skin, or just the adhesive getting ripped off because the moisture wicking capability of the boxes isn't good enough to, absorb your sweat and take it away from the adhesive. So a lot of these issues kept coming up, and whether I went for those medical garments or the sort of privatized garments, which tend to be belts in most cases, I couldn't really find anything that worked. And the problem with belts for me is that I've a slim waist. So by the time I'm running and jumping up and down, like it's constantly moving, I'm constantly readjusting it, and it's really frustrating. So I wanted to find something that worked. And the last 2 years have been doing that, designing a lot of meetings, a lot of just all the things you couldn't even think about doing, but they just become issues, and you deal with them, and then you move on to the next, and you deal with that, and you move on to the next. And here we are with something that's quite incredible, and hopefully nearly ready. I've had a lot of really good prototypes made so far, but just not exactly how I want them to be. And I just think it's so important that I get this right, because, this is a forever thing. If it's good, you have it forever. Let's make it perfect. There's no point rushing it and people looking at it and going, it's shit, and just forgetting about it. Then you take that extra little bit of time and we get it perfect for all of us to live a better life. So, yeah, that's sort of been what I've been playing around with. Now, is it ready yet? No. But in the meantime, we've been able to do like activations with merchandise and like, just a lot of brand awareness related stuff where I've had great response from the community, which I'm really grateful for. And we've been able to build a really great community, which now sort of looks like channels and, just group chats where we're able to just chat all the time. So it's brought a lot of people together, which is great. And, that's the idea. But now I'm just really itching to be able to provide everyone with the support that I know that is coming. Yeah, that's sort of what it is so far. I don't know what else apart from we've tried to universalize it. So one of the big issues that I came across when looking into compression was how prevalent lower back pain is. And so creating the compression to be adequate to keep your pelvis in line with your lower back so that people who don't have stoma bags can still use these garments to exercise safely. Or, like we know a lot of people with ostomy bags are older. So to be able to just slip something on to go down to the shops confident, like feeling confident and feeling held together or whatever it might be, just having something that from the outside is a slick, stylish short, but it's actually a two-in-one that's compressing, high waisted and everything that you need, whether it's exercise or lifestyle. That's the plan.
Sounds fantastic. You've used your lived experience to create something that is a multi-purpose tool that could genuinely be life-changing for people. Because I know myself, when I go to training, as you said, a lot of these things are like casts. You put them on and they kind of restrict the movement in so many different ways. And then I feel if you go for the more tougher sort of ones where you want that extra bit of protection, you really lose the movement with it. Whereas if you go with the ones with a bit more movement in it, you lose the protection. So it's a hard place to kind of figure out which would be the best route to go. But it sounds like you're really about to crack onto something exceptional here. Like,
Yeah, we're close. We're very close. The plan originally was well, the way we forecasted it was for it to the prototype that we received 2 weeks ago to have been the final prototype. Obviously, with how these things go, they never go to plan. So that wasn't the case, but it is so close. Yeah, I'm just so proud of what it's become that I can't wait to show everyone. But again, I just don't think it's right and I owe it to everyone for this product to be exactly the way it should be and perfect for people to really get all the benefits of their life back,
yeah. And this is your Mona Lisa. This is your masterpiece. And
That's it.
my mother always has a thing where she says, it's how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you're striving for perfection in every facet of your life, you're not going to bring out a tool that isn't going to be absolutely perfect. So we've got the right man for the job here to create the perfect products for us ostomates.
I hope so. Yeah. Thank you. No, it's, and I think at the same time, it's another purpose, it's another why to my bank, like
Yeah.
when I have to go back on things and times are hard, like that is one of those anchor points that I can lean on and just, this is why you're doing these things. Like you're suffering out there for research and development. Suck it up. That's it.
I love that. I love that. The R&D of the ultra marathon. It's been absolutely fantastic chatting to you. Like there's so many different things like that I really want to dive into, and I think we'll have to have another podcast because there's so many things that come up. Like your identity as a teenager. Where I know myself when I was a kid, I used anger as fuel to get me through everything that I was experiencing. And then after I had my surgery, I had this whole new lease on life, but I still identified as that angry teenager. And I found a very hard time afterwards. I kept slipping back into old habits. I was kind of self-sabotaging in a sense. It's something I think that we could nearly do an entire 2-hour podcast on. But no, it's been amazing talking to you. I've so many notes here, but I just want to say, just time-wise, just kind of final thoughts and advice for anyone who's probably, I speak to a lot of young men through my Instagram page, and a lot of young men, it's not really a big thing where a lot of lads will speak online about what they're experiencing. There's a much wider demographic of women. I think it's fantastic that there's so many people starting to talk about it. Young men there's not much visibility and shared life experience. So if you were to speak to a young man experiencing what you went through, who's kind of trapped in that hospital or just after stoma surgery, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think what's most important is to know that you need to change your way of looking. You change your perspective on what your stoma is and what it's doing for you. And that'll take time, but to change your mentality from living with a stoma to thriving with a stoma. That's what I love to say because, you know, at the end of the day, still haven't met a single person that has had this surgery and 6 months to a year later isn't thankful for it. And, we all see what it brings to our life. Like it has given us this second chance. And so do all the things that make you happy and find ways to make the processes that you have to now deal with your new body as efficient and streamlined as possible. I change my bag at night because that works best for me. And I change it by putting music on and getting in the shower. And that's how I love doing it because at the end of the day, none of us were trained to see our own intestines and be okay with that, So it can catch you off guard. And that's the sort of stuff that compounds and really puts you back into that rut. And so for me, knowing what time works best for my bag change, so then my bag sets better and I don't have to change it as often. Then when I do change it, I'm doing something that I love so I don't think about it. Then, how I eat or when I eat so that it's not impacting my routine because the more I just alleviate having to think about it, the less it crowds my mind. And so the happier I am and the more space I have for everything else.
Completely. A crowded mind can suck your energy. And if you're constantly different programs running in the background, that can suck the energy from whatever task you have at hand. As you said, developing a structure. Like you change yours at night, whereas I'm only in the morning time. Now
Yeah.
yeah, it's mad. You have to find what adapts into your life to make your life easier. And it is just trial and error for a long time until you find those things out. Like I myself would use a 2-piece bag, but now, so I can change the bag whenever I want, but the plate itself, I'll only ever change that in the morning unless there is an issue. You yourself, do you use what type of bags? A 1-piece, 2-piece?
I use a 1-piece convex bag. Yeah. And yeah, it's super interesting. Like I'm sure we both speak to a lot of ostomates and yeah, everyone has their thing. Like for me, the morning, my stoma is really busy and really active. So I couldn't change it, but at night it's not. And so, yeah, like there's just all these things that everyone's so uniquely different, but we're all going through the same thing. And so that's what's important. And by being able to like talk about it, I've picked up so many tips and like pieces of advice that I can push on to other people. And just like, you never know, like someone who is just 1 week post-op could teach me something and I'm 3 years post-op. And it's just incredible. There's just so many different ways of doing things. It's really good to be able to chat about it.
IBD and stomas and everything is so very individual, and there's no real blanket statements that we can all come across, but we are still experiencing all the same things, and everyone has different perspectives and different adaptabilities to kind of figure it all out. So as you said, someone who's only just a week post-surgery could have a completely different perspective on something that maybe you didn't like think of at a time. So it's great to have these conversations and learn from each other. It's all about lived experience, because you can read and as much as you want, but until you speak to someone who has actually experienced it and told you the ins and outs and the backs to fronts and all that sort of stuff, it's the best way to learn. So I really appreciate you coming on here today and sharing everything that you've gone through. And my God, what a story it is, mate. You have overcome every obstacle thrown in your way and just smashed them. You've built a tower out of all the obstacles in your way in your own life. Like you sound like things are going really well, and it's amazing to hear. But the question that I kind of throw at people is, what does happiness look like to you?
Good question. I think, yeah, look, I am happy, and I think I'm happy when I'm running, and I'm happy when I finish my runs, and I'm not necessarily happy every second of the day, but in the grand scheme of things, if I look at where I was to where I am, I know that I'm always climbing and getting gradually happier and happier because I'm now doing things that are fulfilling my life and making me feel fulfilled. So I think, yeah, like eventually I would love to not have to worry about working and being able to focus more on a fully like athlete routine and lifestyle. But, I'm sure so many people want to feel that way. And I don't know if I remove work, would I appreciate running as much? Who knows? So it's one of those things where right now happiness is what I'm doing, and I'm really thankful for that. But I know that it'll pivot and change all the time. So, it's just about staying aware.
Completely. And I suppose that is life. We don't know how would you know what happiness is if you didn't know what the sadness was? You know, if there's no way to
Absolutely.
compare, yeah, completely. And as you said, you're really working towards a goal that you will be able to help people. Like, it's a lot. It seems like it's becoming a life purpose for you, and it's a fantastic thing that you're doing. So it has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today, mate. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, same goes. Thank you for having me. It's honestly such a great thing you got going on. So it's a privilege to be on here.
Thank you very much. And 100%, if I can get myself to Australia, we are definitely going for a run.
Oh yeah. Oh mate, I've already been thinking about it. I've got the perfect hill to see you cry, and we can go down the nice downhill on the other side.
Gonna put me through my paces.
I'm sure you can do. Yeah, I'm sure you've got something you can just make me end up crying about. So
Yeah,
I'm sure
we could do a pod going for a run. I think that would be a good one.
Imagine that.
Thank you so much for your time today, mate.
Mate, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
That was episode 17 of the Survival Project. One is a fantastic advocate for young men in our IBD community and the ostomy community, and I cannot wait to see what he can achieve with Stryde. If you can either, I'll link his socials in the caption. He's a man destined for big things. If this episode helped you, share it with one person who needs it. And if you're enjoying the podcast, follow or subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Next week's episode will be with gastro consultant Dr. Orla Kelly, who herself is a brilliant advocate for patients, and I can't wait to share a conversation with you. Thanks again to Souls Healthcare for making this possible. I'll see you next week for episode 18.